I will be speaking of a fun bit of history. It turns out that that fun bit of history is a war. Now you must be wondering, how can a war be fun? Well, I'll explain it to you. The story begins in 1920 when the Australian soldiers coming home from the Great War that just finished were given plots of land in Western Australia by the government as thanks for their services. And then we fast forward to 1929 when the Great Depression happened. Well, so that's happening. And in 1932, the Australian government says to those guys with their land that they should grow wheat because they need a lot of wheat to eat because, there's not much food. So the guys with the land, they're like, okay, we can do that. So they start farming wheat. Now, this would be all well and good if there wasn't a certain species of bird in Australia, native to Australia, called the emu. Now, these emus, they have their breeding season and then they migrate to West Australia to, that's just what they do. And they also tend to enjoy eating wheat. So they have their breeding season and then they migrate back to West Australia. And can you imagine the looks on their faces when one of their favorite foods is right there in massive fields, all for them to eat? Now, they begin eating. But of course the farmers aren't going to have this because they worked hard for that wheat. They don't want some birds to just come and eat it. So they go to the government. The government finally decides that, okay, but we're going to have some military personnel do this. So, I don't know their names, but some members of the Royal Australian Artillery's 7th Heavy Artillery go out there with 2 Lewis guns and 10,000 rounds. Now, the emus are quite pleasantly sitting there, eating, and on November 2nd, 1932, the war officially begins. They go to a field where many emus are sitting there, and they open fire with the machine guns. Now, very quickly the guns jam, and the emus run away, and they only manage to kill a few birds. And then they fix the guns and go and do this again. And it doesn't work again. The same happens. They do this several more times, but finally the emus decide that they're not going to stand for this anymore. So they elect a watchbird who watches out for the Australians coming, and he runs back once he sees the Australians. He runs back to his main party of friends and warns them. And by the time the Australians get there, it's too late. All the emus are gone. And so then they decide to mount the guns on some cars. But that also proves to be ineffective. It's too much work. It's too hard of a drive for the Australians to do with the guns. So they're getting pretty fed up, and so by November 8th, they were so fed up that they decided to call it off. And the end result was, out of the 20,000 emus that started, they only managed to kill 50 to 500. It's a large number, but no one can be sure. Like, they didn't count how many they killed. But the wheat farmers were still fed up. So they do this all again. But it doesn't work again. And finally, they are so fed up, they just completely quit. So, in the span of 6 days, Australia declared, fought, and lost a war against a bunch of birds. And that is probably why it makes it a very funny war. Well, that's it.